The all-time rosters franchise Week 12 begins on Thanksgiving, Green Bay and Detroit, in one of the great matchups in the history of the sport. Brett Favre was fantastic, especially when targeting one of the best receivers in the history of the game. The quarterback was 19 of 27 for 258 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 of them to Sterling Sharp and the other here to Greg Jennings. The Packers humiliate Detroit and jump in front of San Francisco for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Packers 34, Lions 19. And now to the best game on the day. Staubach and the all-time Cowboys hope to keep it going against Miami. Dallas has won 5 in a row. The Cowboys were red hot to begin the game today with a big pass to Michael Irvin and a touchdown to Emmitt Smith to close the opening drive. More of the same for the Cowboys, who jump in front 16-3 at halftime. Late in the third quarter, the Super Bowl champions combined for a big turning point in the game. Jake Scott the forced fumble, Dick Anderson the fumble recovery, and a few plays later, Pro Bowl tight end Keith Jackson has his 4th touchdown catch of the season, and the Dolphins are back in the game. Ensuing drive immediately ends in a Dallas disaster. Xavier Howard with his first touchdown of the year. Dolphins lead late in the game, 23-16. This may be Dallas's final shot, and Roger Staubach, who threw for 307 yards on the day, has his lone touchdown with a minute left in the fourth quarter to Terrell Owens. Both teams would punt on their next drive, and we are headed to overtime on Thanksgiving. Dallas wins the opening toss, and Staubach came right out guns blazing. Here's Emmitt Smith with a big run of 17 to near midfield, but on third down, Tony Dorsett would be denied. Brandon Aubrey, who hadn't missed a kick all season, whiffs it to the left, giving the Dolphins a chance here in the middle of overtime. And Mercury Morris, who ran for 96 yards on the day, he was money in overtime. A couple big first downs, then Olindo Mare from 44 for the win, and he got it. The Dolphins maintained the top spot in their division with a win in overtime. And we conclude Thanksgiving in Baltimore. Niners have won 4 in a row. The Ravens have dropped 4 in a row. Jackson sacked for his first safety of the year out of Dave Wilcox, part of a San Francisco rout. Every player for the Niners seemed to have outdone their opponent today, as San Francisco improves to 9-2 and shares the top spot in the conference with the all-time Green Bay Packers. Ravens are essentially out of the postseason mix as Montana goes wild in a big road win. Speaking of those Ravens, Joe Burrow carved them up last week in a big win in Baltimore to keep their season alive. 408 yards and 4 touchdowns in his debut. But he come crashing back down to earth against Cleveland today. Don Paul, a star of the 1950s with the interception, part of a Browns beatdown. Leroy Kelly with a pair of touchdowns. Jim Brown found the end zone a few times too, as the all-time Browns dismantle their division rival to jump to 8-3 on the season, 38-13. The all-time Houston Texans still searching for their first win of the year. They take on the Jaguars today and jump out to a big lead. Zach Cunningham with the pick 6, and Houston jumps in front 10-0. Late in the third quarter, the sputtering Jacksonville offense grabs their first big play on a Jimmy Smith touchdown reception. Then the Jags in the fourth quarter, led by Brunell and Smith, march right down the field. With 2 minutes left in the regulation, Brunell to Allen Robinson is the scoring connection to give the Jags the lead, but the man in for Deshaun Watson's got the ball with a chance to seal it. 4th and 3 with the game on the line. 2023 Offensive Rookie of the Year, sacked by his predecessor in Trayvon Walker, his 3rd on the day. And Houston falls to 0-11 with this road loss against Jacksonville. Jags still out of it at 3-8 overall. From grocery bagger to NFL MVP, it's the Warner Bowl from St. Louis, all-time Cardinals, all-time Rams. Arizona St. Louis out of the postseason picture coming in at 2-8. The sickest man in America, Hall of Famer Jackie Smith for the Cardinals, coupled with a few Jim Bakken field goals, gives the road team a 16-6 lead in the middle of the fourth quarter. You knew Warner wouldn't go down without a fight for the Rams. A couple big throws to crazy legs Elroy Hirsch, but this would be his last of the year. Second receiver in 3 weeks to go down with a season-ending injury, herniated disc for Hirsch, who goes on IR. The Rams would close that fourth quarter drive here a few minutes later with a touchdown to Dick Bass. And then the Cardinals with a chance to secure the win. The struggling Otis Anderson loses the ball and Kevin Green recovers for the Rams. Deacon Jones, who's having a Hall of Fame year for the all-time Rams, there for the takeaway. Rams a chance to take the lead, but on 3rd and goal, Ellard is denied, and they'd be forced to tie the game with a field goal. Late in the fourth, Otis Anderson makes amends with this big run down the sideline for the Cardinals, who have a chance to secure the win in regulation. Then Warner throws 2 incompletions, and that is short of the marker. We head to overtime, and the Rams grab it first. And Kurt Warner, who's one of the league's leading passers coming into the day, a couple of big throws. Then with just a minute gone by in overtime, Isaac Bruce, his Super Bowl champion teammate, makes the grab of the corner of the end zone to win it in overtime. What a spectacular pass to secure the Rams' 8th win of the year, their 5th in a row. Warner throws for 347 and the Rams win in overtime. What Warner did was impressive, but what Hall of Famer Joe Namath did earned him the game ball as the Offensive Player of the Week. It's been a disappointing season for the quarterback this year, but he made amends against Buffalo in the division matchup. This to keep the Jets alive, and Namath was spectacular. 20 for 28, 307 yards, and 4 touchdowns in a beatdown of the Bills. A look at his numbers today as the Jets keep their season alive with this win, 38-10. The mixture of the Tennessee Titans and Houston Oilers all-time teams have been undefeated 5-0 at home, led by this guy who went nearly half the season without an interception. Now that's all he's throwing over the last few weeks. Ronde Barber, the man who led the league in picks in 2001, won a Super Bowl for that great defense a year later. He had his best day of the season today, picking off Warren Moon not once, not twice, but 3 times on the day. Final replacement game for Doug Williams in for the injured Tom Brady. He finds his man for the touchdown. And as mentioned, Barber takes it away again for Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers are the number 6 defense in the league, and they shut out Tennessee Houston 19-0. After the loss from Tennessee Houston, the all-time Colts could share the top spot in the division again with a win today against hapless Carolina. Peyton Manning would finish the day as the league's leader in passing. Another spectacular performance against Carolina as he would carve them up for 347 yards and 2 touchdowns. His favorite receiver on this day was T.Y. Hilton, who went 4 for $148 and those 2 scores. The Colts humiliate the Panthers today, 45-6. If the playoffs started today, the 7-4 Colts would be the first team out of the AFC playoffs. If the all-time Vikings want to stay alive in the NFC playoff picture, they basically have to run the table. Their first opponent, the all-time Falcons, who have struggled this year. Fran Tarkenton with a sensational performance. Vikings take care of business today, 41-3. In this series, whenever the Bears and Raiders play, you know it is a fantastic game, and this was no different. Hall of Famer Kenny Stabler brings in the league's #1 completion percentage, but these completions were a piece of cake against the vaunted Bears. A 61-yard screen pass to Bo Jackson puts the Raiders on the board, then Marcus Allen is gone from 50. The Raiders, in a beatdown, jump out to a 28-7 lead on the #2 defense in football late in the first half. Credit to Sid Luckman, finds Harlan Hill for his first touchdown on the day. Then Chris Harris gets involved defensively with a strip sack of Ken Stabler. Pettibon with the recovery. Then to begin the fourth quarter, Bears back on the board. Another one to Harlan Hill. Walter Payton ran 11 times for 109 yards on the day, and this was a big one to set up a Luckman to Hewitt scoring connection to tie the game at 28. But 2 plays later, the Raiders would bounce right back. Another long one to Tim Brown to put the Raiders back in front in a score fest, 35-28. Bears convert their second 4th down of the year from Walter Payton. Then Luckman drives them deep into field goal range with 2 timeouts needing a touchdown to win. 3rd down, Luckman is sacked. 4th down, he throws short of the marker, and a disappointing end to the game. What was a flurry of points from Oakland, Raiders win it 35-28. Sloppy football game from the Pacific Northwest, Washington and Seattle. The all-time Redskins Commanders have to win this game to have a chance for the postseason. Russell Wilson would tie it up in the fourth quarter at 10, but Larry Brown, who had an MVP performance, sets up Washington, and Gary Clark is in for 6. His lone catch of the day would prove to be the difference as the final throw of the day is knocked down at the 5. Washington improves to 5-6. The first meeting between these two was a good one. This might be even better. Denver against San Diego, LA. Demaryius Thomas caps the opening Denver drive with a 30-yard touchdown, his 4th of the season. LT is in the end zone not once, but make it twice, and with a 2-pointer, Chargers lead by 7, then make it 14. In for the injured Kellen Winslow, it's Antonio Gates. Broncos were down but not out due to the best run of the season from any tailback, Terrell Davis from 95. Then the defense gets involved with a 3-and-out. In the clutch, John Elway down 7 late in the game. Just ask the Packers how good he is in the clutch. He finds Emmanuel Sanders for the first 4th down conversion of this drive. Then to second to tie the game, Rod Smith from 12 yards out. And after a Charger punt, we're headed to overtime. Broncos receive the opening kick of OT. Then Lionel Taylor, star out of the 60s, with a big catch here for Denver. He had 6 of those for 122 yards and the new league leader in receiving with 899 yards. Lionel Taylor, a great game from him. Game-winning field goal from Elam as Elway and the Broncos improved to 6-5 with this win in overtime. Thrilling game out of Philadelphia. 5-5 Patriots, 5-5 Eagles. Tom Brady, without his best tight end, his best receiver, and Terry Glenn to boot, keeps on chugging offensively. He is 3rd of the league in passing with 2,408 yards on the year. In this one in Philadelphia, more of the same for Brady. 53 yards in the game's first pass. Then the opening drive ends with a touchdown to Wes Welker. Randall Cunningham bounced back with his best game of the season after a rough one last week, as he goes for 349 and 3 touchdowns on the day. Pijos, Carmichael, then in the third quarter, it's McDonald who grabs it for the Eagles. And after a Sam Cunningham touchdown, the brother of Randall Cunningham, Patriots lead late in the game 24-21. Philly's offense stalls once, but Martin is denied here, so can the Eagles punch it in? They need a field goal for the tie and a touchdown for the win. 2 first downs to Pete Pijos, but then Philadelphia would stall late in the game. And on 4th down, Harold Jackson short of the marker. And the Patriots come out of this one with a big win on the road. Welker has been great all season. The Patriots started the year 0-3, but are now 6-5 overall. Meanwhile, the all-time Chiefs are starting to fluster here in the middle of the season, losers of 2 in a row. They battle the league's last undefeated team in the all-time Steelers. This was no contest, and it was the Chiefs that pulled off the win on Sunday night. Tyrann Mathieu the pick, then Mahomes finds Hill, and Jamal Charles is in the end zone too. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, another 2 touchdowns to give him a league-high 23, and the Chiefs pull off the upset 28-7. The all-time Steelers are still the AFC's #1 seed, but their opportunity to clinch a playoff spot will have to be next week against Cincinnati. And finally, Monday night, all-time Giants, all-time Saints. New York with a big win on the road in New Orleans. Victor Cruz the touchdown, and then Defensive Player of the Week Mark Haynes with the pick 6. The Giants 20 and the Saints 10. If the all-time playoffs started today, the Packers and the Niners would have a first-round bye, Bears would visit the Cowboys, and the Rams would visit the Bucs. Here's a look at the division leaders: Steelers, Titans, Oilers, all-time Dolphins, and Kansas City is in front by 1 game over the Raiders in the AFC West. NFC division leaders: all-time Packers at 9-2, all-time Bucs at 6-5, all-time Cowboys a game up with the Giants at 7-4, and San Francisco's game up with the Rams at 9-2. The Colts boast the league's #1 offense, and the Chiefs are #1 in defense. That wraps up a thrilling Week 12 of the All-Time Rosters franchise. Here's a look at the games that were and a preview to Week 13 with some entertaining games. Join us tomorrow for the injury report and the extra point breakdown in what should be a thrilling Week 13. This is the All-Time Rosters franchise with Charger Dude 95.